Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Rising. Saagar, what are we doing?
Oh, we have an amazing show for everybody today. We have Michael McCann to talk a little bit about college athletes that are getting paid. We have our friend Taryn Klein to look at the latest results of college polling, something that I know that you guys are all very interested in. Elizabeth Warren has changed her position a little bit on campaign finance. Indeed. We're going to break that down for everybody. And of course, Bernie Sanders shredded the New York Times in a recent interview. We're going to break that down. All that coming up today on Rising.
All right, Saagar, what are you looking at?
Well, former Vice President Joe Biden came out swinging yesterday, or I guess his version of it, in his strongest worded statement to date, calling for the impeachment of President Donald Trump. The impetus for this call is, of course, Trump's own highlighting of Biden's son Hunter and his past role on the board of a Ukrainian energy company, as long as his involvement with a private equity firm that received a large payment from the Chinese government. Let's take a listen to Biden's statement.
Donald Trump has violated his oath of office, betrayed this nation, and committed impeachable acts. To preserve our Constitution, our democracy, our basic integrity, he should be impeached.
Further on in that speech, Biden borrowed from a common woke Democratic refrain by likening Trump and his critics' highlighting of Hunter's past business dealings to Nazi propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels. This is a disgusting smear. Are there people who are using Hunter's past business dealings in bad faith to damage him? Sure. But branding anybody who dares question the holy vice president's motives and that of his family as a Nazi is the lowest of low blows. Worse, the media is covering for him. They are united in their total and complete belief that there is absolutely nothing to see here at all when it comes to Hunter's past business dealings and its intersection with Biden's own vice presidency. Just look at the words the New York Times uses in its own story about Biden's speech. Quote, "There is no evidence that Hunter made millions of dollars from his overseas work or that his father intervened inappropriately with Ukraine or China," the other country Mr. Trump was alluding to in his tweet. That is an incredible statement, given that the New York Times' own reporting confirms Hunter was paid $50,000 a month by the Ukrainian energy company Burisma. Furthermore, you all may remember my monologue from last week detailing the connections between Hunter and Joe Biden. Well, guess what? Where did I get all that information from? The New York Times, people. To recap, Hunter accompanied his father on a 2013 trip to Beijing, catching a ride on Air Force Two. Days later, a private equity firm called BHR Equity Investments raised $1 billion, later raised to $1.5 billion, in funding from the Chinese government. The company's largest shareholder is literally the Bank of China. Hunter at the time sat on the board of BHR Holdings. While in China, Joe Biden shook hands with the future CEO of BHR Holdings and also met with Hunter Biden on a so-called social call. Hunter, by his own admission, continues to own 10% of the company, even though he assures us all he's yet to make any money for it. What the hell is the New York Times talking about? There is evidence in their own paper I just laid out that Hunter Biden made untold sums profiting off of his father's vice presidency. Is there any evidence that his father intervened solely for the purpose of saving his son's company from his investigation? No, there isn't. But that's why it's called a conflict of interest and why ethical people avoid them, to spare even the question. Even worse, Biden's Democratic opponents are covering for him. Kamala Harris has told us we all just need to leave Joe alone. Elizabeth Warren, in a recent interview, said that, quote, "What happened in Ukraine is about Donald Trump." Again, this is the candidate who bought $10 million in ads, touting a pledge to crack down on corruption in American politics. Why is it so hard for people to admit quite clearly that what Hunter Biden did was shady as hell? Why is the paper of so-called Record putting unfounded claims, to borrow from their language, of defense for Biden, which are easily proven false by their own reporting? The answer is that Donald Trump, and the answer is Donald Trump. It will be the undoing of both the media and the Democrats if they continue down this path. And by the way, that's what Nazism actually looked like. Having a message pushed by extremely powerful people with a lot to lose, and the media gobbling it up in order to preserve their status with the powerful. The media and the Democrats, they hate Trump so much that if he says something with a grain of truth, it becomes their job in life to gaslight the American public to believe that he is lying. The thing is, though, is that Trump says things which are not true all the time. They could just stick to those. They'd probably have enough for a lifetime. But instead, they can't resist, and it leads to the gaslighting like this. And I just couldn't believe it, Crystal. I mean, first of all, Biden, to compare people and to compare the repeating of what he calls a lie to Goebbels, it's disgusting.
I can't believe he did that.
Right, I mean, and it just shows how sensitive he is about the fact that his family, his son and his brother, and many of his other family members were profiting and making millions off of his vice presidency, and he refuses to grapple with that whatsoever. But what's worse is in the second paragraph of the New York Times to see Mr. Trump's unfounded claims against Joe Biden. I'm like, is this a joke? Like, I can't believe my own eyes.
Well, and to undermine their own reporters like that. I mean, we had Risen on the show, who was the original reporter on the story about Hunter and Ukraine. Ken Vogel, who's done a lot of, this really undercuts what their own reporters have been digging up. There's also some new reporting from Mediaite relevant this morning that the Biden campaign sent the New York Times Dean Baquet a nastygram, saying that they were very upset with their reporting and that it was outrageous and a smear, et cetera, et cetera.
They're upset that they reported the truth. This is just like Hillary Clinton in 2015. They could not stand that the Clinton email server story was broken in the pages of the New York Times. You know why? Because it was a real story.
Right.
Sorry.
Well, and it's not, and to your point, it's not hard to get this right.
No,
it's not hard to say what Trump did was wrong and probably illegal and not justifiable, but also this is shady, and it deserves attention, especially, I feel like the theme of this show could be, this is why we can't have nice things.
Yeah, literally.
This is why Democrats end up looking like hypocrites, because they want to go to the mat over corruption, but they want to turn a blind eye when it regards their own people.
Yeah.